There are stories that unfold quietly yet leave echoes that travel through centuries, reaching people who were never meant to witness the moments firsthand. The story of Prophet Ishaq alayhi salam stands among those rare tales, subtle at first glance, but gripping when understood through the emotional threads connecting family, faith, sacrifice, and destiny. This documentary takes you back to a world long before the borders of nations like Jordan or Saudi Arabia existed, a world where a single household carried responsibilities that would shape humanity's moral landscape. But this isn't the typical historical retelling. It's a recount of tensions, fears, laughs, miracles, and deeply human moments from a family navigating the unknown. And at the center of this generational story stands a child, long-awaited, divinely promised, incredibly loved, whose arrival would shake the foundations of belief and inspire legacies still whispered today. As the camera pans across the deserts, valleys, and distant horizon lines, the story of Ishaq emerges not as a quiet chapter of history, but as a cinematic life drama, filled with emotional suspense, personal struggle, and the kind of hope that survives droughts, distance, and decades of longing. Before Ishaq's birth, the world of Prophet Ibrahim and his wife Sarah felt like a long desert road, hopeful but stretched thin by waiting. They had already traveled through lands that today fall within Iraq, Turkey, and Palestine, escaping dangers, confronting tyrants, and witnessing miracles. But the one miracle their hearts quietly pleaded for still hadn't arrived. A child. Not a nation, not a kingdom, just a child to hold, raise, and love. Their tent heard countless whispered prayers, their nights filled with silent sighs and small smiles of reassurance they offered to one another even when doubt crept in. And just when the world around them seemed unchanged, a moment arrived that would rewrite their fate. It didn't arrive with thunder, lightning, or an army of angels. It began with the simple presence of three extraordinary guests. Their visit looked ordinary enough, yet carried a message destined to shake Sarah's world, make Ibrahim smile in disbelief, and prepare the stage for a miracle child whose story would carry across continents. Life was about to shift, not with force, but with a promise, one that would make even the toughest cynic believe that hope can arrive when you least expect it. When the guests spoke the words of divine news that Sarah, despite her age, would bear a son, the tent fell into a stunned expectancy. Sarah laughed, not from mockery but from disbelief mixed with delight. It was the kind of laugh one makes when life surprises them after decades of waiting. A laugh that shakes the soul a little. The angels delivered the message with calm certainty, the kind that makes even skeptics sit upright and rethink what's possible. Ibrahim listened with the serene acceptance of someone who had witnessed miracles many times before, but Sarah was human, beautifully human. Her shock, her questions, her hope, all made her relatable to every person who has ever waited so long for something that its arrival felt almost unreal. And thus, the miracle was set in motion. But even with divine reassurance, doubts fluttered through Sarah's mind like restless birds. Could she truly become a mother at such an age? Could her body bear what destiny had written? Could she rise to a role she once thought life had denied her? In the soft glow of lamplight, the couple held each other, knowing one truth: their story was entering a chapter that would transform everything. The months that followed felt like a fresh wind blowing across the desert sands. Ibrahim walked with renewed energy, Sarah moved with a sparkle in her gaze, and their household became a place buzzing with preparation. Their servants exchanged whispers, their neighbors watched with curiosity, and even the animals seemed more lively. Sarah, who had spent years convincing herself to accept a life without children, now found herself dreaming about tiny footsteps in the tent, the warmth of small hands in hers, and the laughter of a child filling the air. The emotional transition wasn't simple. It was a mix of excitement, fear, humor, and constant wonder. Ibrahim would occasionally place his hand over Sarah's belly with a tenderness that softened the toughest hearts. He didn't need to speak. His eyes carried a gratitude beyond words. And in these moments, their love story gained a new layer, one built not only on loyalty and survival, but on shared anticipation. The desert nights seemed shorter, the stars brighter, and the future more vivid. A child was coming, a child promised by Allah, a child destined to inherit not just land but legacy. When Ishaq was finally born, the world around the small household felt transformed. Sarah held him as though she were holding sunlight, warm, delicate, and impossible to let go. Ibrahim looked at his newborn son with an emotion deep enough to silence everything around him. His long life had been filled with trials, victories, miracles, and separations, but this moment eclipsed them all. The arrival of Ishaq wasn't just the birth of a child, it was the physical manifestation of patience rewarded, prayers answered, and faith honored. Sarah's heart swelled every time she gazed into his small, curious eyes. She whispered to him the hopes she had never dared to say aloud before. Their tent, once quiet, now echoed with the gentle coos of a child whose significance reached far beyond his family. People traveled from distant lands, regions we now call Syria and Lebanon, just to witness the miracle baby of an elderly mother. They were not there out of spectacle but out of awe, sensing that this child carried a destiny intertwined with nations and generations yet unborn. As Ishaq grew, his personality began to bloom. He had a calm but curious nature, a quiet wisdom that made even adults pause. There was a sense of peace around him, as though he instinctively understood the weight of the divine promise surrounding his life. Ibrahim would often take him on long walks across the land, teaching him not with lectures but through stories, sights, and experiences. He showed him flowing rivers, towering mountains, and the perfect stillness of the desert, all reminders of God's artistry. Sarah, in turn, created a world of affection around him, ensuring he felt safe, loved, and valued. Their family dynamic wasn't grand or dramatic, it was soft, intimate, and refreshingly human. But beneath the warmth was a hidden layer of tension, the awareness that divine destinies often come wrapped in challenges. As rumors spread across the lands about the miracle child, expectations rose. People whispered prophecies, interpretations, predictions. Some even speculated envy or offered unsolicited advice. Despite the noise, Ishaq grew in humility, unaware that his future would require a heart strong enough to carry a nation's spiritual thread. Life around Ibrahim's family wasn't always peaceful. There were political tensions, tribal conflicts, and unpredictable dangers. Nomadic tribes wandered in search of water, while rival groups occasionally clashed over scarce resources. Though the family lived with faith, they were not shielded from the realities of a desert world where survival depended on strategy, alliances, and quick decisions. Ibrahim, known for his wisdom and diplomacy, often found himself mediating disputes. Ishaq watched and learned. It wasn't swords or arrows that captivated him, it was the power of calm presence, a guiding voice, and a heart grounded in certainty. These early lessons sculpted his character. They taught him patience in chaos, fairness in conflict, and humility in moments of leadership. Ibrahim saw potential in him, not the kind that sparks wars or builds empires, but the kind that unites hearts and ensures the continuity of faith. In a world harsh and unpredictable, young Ishaq developed resilience, shaped not by violence but by understanding the fragile balance sustaining life around him. As the years rolled on, the bond between Ishaq and his parents deepened. Ibrahim found comfort in watching his son grow into a young man shaped by serenity and natural grace. Sarah, once worried about her ability to nurture a child at her age, found herself rejuvenated by motherhood. But with joy came the inevitable realization that their son belonged not only to them, but to a destiny larger than their family. Travelers from what is now Egypt often passed by, sharing news of shifting politics, new rulers, and emerging threats from distant kingdoms. These stories painted a turbulent backdrop to Ishaq's coming of age, reminding the family that divine missions rarely unfold in peaceful worlds. Still, despite the heaviness surrounding them, their household maintained an atmosphere of warmth. Nights were filled with storytelling, gentle banter, and Ibrahim recounting tales of his earlier trials, fires that did not burn him, migrations commanded by God, and moments where the unseen shaped his path. Ishaq listened, fascinated but humbled. He never assumed his life would mirror the extraordinary events of his father's past. Instead, he felt inspired to simply be worthy of the role written for him long before he took his first breath. The first real test of Ishaq's life came disguised as a moment of trust. Ibrahim, now aging and reflective, felt compelled to ensure that his son understood the essence of devotion, even if the world around them questioned it. The desert had taught Ibrahim one truth: faith is not proven by comfort but by surrender. One quiet dawn, Ibrahim called Ishaq for a private journey, their silhouettes stretching long across the golden sand as the sun climbed. There was no tension, no dramatic premonition, only the familiar peace between a father and his son. During the journey, Ibrahim shared heartfelt words, speaking of purpose, responsibility, and the importance of aligning one's heart with divine commands. What made this conversation unforgettable wasn't its content, but its tone. Ibrahim wasn't lecturing, he was opening his heart. Ishaq listened with quiet understanding, feeling emotions he couldn't yet name. It was during these hours that he realized the true depth of his father's life, a life shaped not by power or conquest, but by obedience and unwavering trust. For Ishaq, this journey became a turning point, a moment when he began to feel the weight of destiny settle gently onto his shoulders. Although stories often emphasize dramatic miracles, the real beauty of Ishaq's life lay in the subtler moments, those that shaped him from within. He spent countless evenings sitting outside his family's tent, watching stars drift across the velvet sky. He wondered how the same God who arranged the heavens with perfect precision also orchestrated the flow of human lives. When messengers from distant regions, places we now know as Iran and Azerbaijan, came bearing news, Ishaq absorbed their stories like a sponge. He learned of shifting empires, new rulers, and battles fought over pride or territory. These accounts didn't harden him. Instead, they taught him the value of peace. He became known among travelers as the young man whose presence calmed disputes without raising his voice. His quiet confidence, combined with a gentle smile, gave people reassurance even during tense conversations. And though he didn't yet know it, these qualities were slowly preparing him for the life of leadership that awaited him. The desert winds carried whispers of his growing reputation, reminding everyone that Ibrahim's legacy would continue, not through force, but through gentleness and clarity of heart. Sarah often watched her son with a mixture of pride and nostalgia. She knew that every parent eventually reaches a moment when they must loosen their grip and allow their child to walk into his own story. For years, she had been Ishaq's protective shield, guiding him through early fears, comforting him during difficult days, and filling his world with tenderness. But now, as she observed his strong steps and thoughtful expressions, she saw a young man who no longer needed guiding, but rather, someone who needed room to grow. Their conversations shifted from motherly caution to deep emotional exchanges. She shared life lessons, personal mistakes, and unspoken fears she had kept hidden for decades. Ishaq listened attentively, sensing the fragility behind her wisdom. He held her hands when her voice trembled and reassured her with quiet words. Those intimate moments between mother and son became some of the most cherished in their household, grounding their family with love amid the uncertainty of the outside world. Even as tribal tensions rose in nearby regions and rumors of unrest reached their home, Sarah found solace in knowing her son was growing into the kind of person who brought peace wherever he went. As Ishaq reached maturity, the question of marriage became a gentle but persistent topic in the household. Ibrahim knew that his son needed a partner who would support his mission, understand his character, and stand beside him in times of hardship. However, the search for such a woman wasn't as simple as browsing neighboring tribes. This decision required wisdom, discernment, and divine guidance. Ibrahim's previous journeys had taught him the importance of choosing relationships carefully. They could shape one's destiny or derail it entirely. Their region, which today borders Jordan and Palestine, overflowed with diverse tribes, each with its own customs and temperaments. Yet Ibrahim did not rush. Instead, he reflected, prayed, and consulted trusted advisors. Meanwhile, Sarah observed the entire process with a mother's insight, hoping her son would find a companion whose heart matched his. Ishaq himself felt no urgency. He trusted his parents' judgment and believed that God's timing would unfold perfectly. This period of waiting brought a calmness to their home, a quiet anticipation rather than tension. It reminded everyone that the best chapters of life often require patience, reflection, and a willingness to wait for what is truly meant for you. The moment finally came when Ibrahim decided to send a trusted servant on a mission to find a suitable wife for Ishaq. This wasn't a journey of convenience. It was one filled with purpose and emotional weight. Ibrahim gave detailed instructions, ensuring the servant understood the importance of finding a woman of noble character rather than one from superficial prestige. Though the servant accepted the task with confidence, he felt the pressure of responsibility resting heavily on his shoulders. Meanwhile, back home, Sarah and Ishaq shared an unspoken tension, wondering who destiny would bring into their lives. The servant traveled through lands that today map onto western Iraq, meeting families, observing communities, and silently praying for guidance. Along the way, he was welcomed, challenged, and even delayed by storms and shifting tribal disputes. Yet he remained steadfast, carrying not just Ibrahim's instructions but the hopes of an entire household. His journey became a testament to loyalty, patience, and the understanding that some missions require both human effort and divine assistance. Little did he know that his success would shape the future of nations and spiritual traditions that would arise centuries later. When Rebekah arrived, Ishaq's world shifted in ways he had not expected. She carried herself with quiet strength, neither timid nor boastful. Their first meeting wasn't dramatic or overly romantic. It was simple, sincere, and filled with a mutual sense of respect. The ease with which their spirits aligned surprised everyone around them. Their marriage, built on faith and companionship rather than impulsive emotion, became a foundation of stability in turbulent times. Together, they created a home marked by warmth, patience, and spiritual clarity. Rebekah complemented Ishaq's gentle nature with her determination and insight. She had a gift for understanding people's emotions, often settling disputes within their household before they escalated. Meanwhile, Ishaq remained the calm center of their family, grounding everyone with his serene presence. Their marriage became known throughout their region, stretching into areas of modern-day Saudi Arabia, as an example of harmony. Even travelers stopped by just to witness the tranquility of their household. Little did they know that beneath this tranquility, a new test was quietly forming, one that would challenge both Rebekah's patience and Ishaq's faith. Years passed, yet the couple remained childless. Though both Ishaq and Rebekah concealed their emotional struggle from the world, their hearts carried the quiet ache familiar to anyone who has waited long for something deeply precious. Their home remained filled with laughter, kindness, and spiritual peacefulness, but every night held a moment of silent longing. Rebekah wondered if she was failing her role as a wife destined to carry a lineage. Ishaq reassured her, reminding her that God's timing often defies human expectations. But even he, with his deep patience, felt occasional pangs of sadness. Their community observed their situation with growing curiosity, sometimes offering well-meaning but intrusive comments. Yet unlike others, Ishaq and Rebekah refused to let frustration stain their relationship. They held on to each other, seeking comfort in private prayers. Eventually, their persistence became a quiet act of worship in itself. They learned to appreciate small joys, walks under the stars, shared meals, and heartfelt conversations. And just like his parents before him, Ishaq discovered that some blessings arrive only after the soul has been softened by waiting. Their patience became the opening door for a miracle they had never stopped hoping for. Finally, after years of longing, God blessed them with twin boys, Yaqub and Esau. Their birth turned the once quiet household into a lively space echoing with baby cries, small feet, and childhood laughter. Ishaq's face glowed with pride every time he held his sons, while Rebekah radiated the confidence of a woman who had stepped fully into her role as a mother. Yet with this joy came new challenges. The twins were unlike each other in personality. Esau grew bold, adventurous, and physically strong. He loved exploring the rugged terrains around their settlement, sometimes venturing toward regions now part of Syria. Yaqub, on the other hand, possessed a gentle nature similar to his father. He preferred quiet company, reflective discussions, and assisting Rebekah with daily responsibilities. Their contrasting personalities fascinated everyone, including Ishaq. As the boys grew, their differences became more pronounced, occasionally sparking rivalry. But Rebekah and Ishaq navigated these challenges with patience, understanding that every child carries a unique path. What mattered wasn't molding them into similarity, it was guiding them toward becoming men of principle. These early family dynamics formed the emotional foundation of the years ahead, blending joy, conflict, growth, and the beautiful unpredictability of parenthood. One of the most captivating aspects of Ishaq's life was the emotional intelligence he used to navigate family tensions. He recognized Esau's fiery nature without suppressing it and nurtured Yaqub's intellectual spirit without isolating him. His leadership within the household resembled a delicate balancing act, listening deeply, advising wisely, and maintaining fairness through every challenge. Meanwhile, Rebekah played a crucial complementary role. Her instincts often guided her decisions, and her understanding of subtle emotional dynamics helped her steer the family away from potential conflicts. Together, they created a household that blended structure with freedom, tradition with understanding. Their home became a gathering place for travelers seeking guidance, comfort, and even inspiration. Word of their harmonious leadership spread across the tribal regions surrounding what is now recognized as Palestine. People admired not just their spiritual status, but their humanity, their ability to love fiercely, forgive easily, and embrace life's complexities. Even as political unrest stirred beyond their territory, their home remained a sanctuary. Yet, beneath the surface of tranquility, destiny was quietly arranging events that would influence generations to come. As their sons transitioned into adulthood, Ishaq began preparing to pass down blessings and responsibilities. This wasn't merely a cultural practice, it was a sacred tradition. Giving the blessing meant passing on leadership, spiritual guidance, and the household's future. Esau, being the elder twin, expected to receive it. His confidence in this belief made him dismissive of the deeper spiritual weight the blessing carried. Yaqub, however, understood its significance more profoundly. He felt the call of destiny tugging at his heart, though he struggled to reconcile that feeling with cultural norms. The emotional tension between the brothers grew as subtle rivalry turned into noticeable conflict. Rebekah observed their behavior and sensed the unfolding of a divine plan, one much bigger than personal preference or societal expectation. She remembered how her own life had unfolded through divine orchestration and believed the same fate awaited her sons. Meanwhile, Ishaq, now aging and sometimes weary, prayed for clarity. He sought to make decisions rooted in wisdom rather than routine. Little did he know that destiny was already silently weaving the next stage of this family's story. The day came when Ishaq, sensing his weakening health, decided it was time to pronounce the blessing. His voice, though gentle, carried authority that echoed through the walls of their home. He asked for Esau to prepare his favorite meal and present it before him. Esau hurried off with eagerness, unaware that this moment would become one of the most widely discussed chapters in their family's story. Meanwhile, Rebekah, understanding the depth of Yaqub's calling, saw an opportunity for destiny to unfold. She didn't act out of favoritism but out of insight. She believed wholeheartedly that Yaqub was destined for the spiritual lineage. With urgency in her voice, she guided Yaqub into presenting himself before Ishaq in Esau's place. The emotional conflict within Yaqub was immense. He wasn't a deceitful person, yet he felt torn between obedience to his mother and loyalty to his brother. Ultimately, he trusted Rebekah's discernment. What followed was a moment filled with tension, vulnerability, and divine orchestration. As Yaqub stood before his nearly blind father, the air felt heavy with destiny. And when Ishaq spoke the blessing, he unknowingly aligned his words with the divine plan already written. When Esau returned and learned what had happened, the emotional explosion shook their household. His anger wasn't just rooted in losing the blessing, it was the heartbreak of feeling replaced. Ishaq, once informed, found himself caught between sorrow and acceptance. Though deceived unintentionally, he recognized that what occurred had been guided by divine will. Rebekah felt the weight of the consequences, knowing her decision had set her sons on two very different paths. The tension escalated to a point where Esau began harboring resentment. Worried that anger would drive him to actions he would regret, Rebekah and Ishaq agreed that Yaqub needed to leave temporarily. The moment of departure was heavy with emotion. Yaqub hugged his mother tightly, promising to return. Ishaq, though heartbroken, gave his son additional blessings for protection and prosperity. Their home, once filled with laughter and movement, suddenly felt quieter. The emotional pain lingered like a shadow, yet beneath it lay the quiet acknowledgement that destiny often unfolds through difficult choices. Yaqub's journey took him across harsh terrains and unfamiliar territories. He traveled through lands corresponding to modern Jordan and Syria, meeting various tribes and experiencing new cultures. Though he was alone, he carried the blessing of his father like a shield. He often found himself looking up at the night sky, reminding himself that the same God who promised his grandfather Ibrahim a legacy would protect him as well. His travels were filled with small adventures, encounters with unpredictable strangers, moments of solitude, and glimpses of divine reassurance. Each experience toughened him, sharpening his wisdom and preparing him for leadership in ways he never expected. Meanwhile, back home, Ishaq and Rebekah prayed daily for his safety. Their hearts ached with longing but also carried pride. They knew their son was stepping into a destiny that required strength, courage, and perseverance. Time, as it often does, softened the edges of the family conflict. Esau continued living near his parents, forming alliances, carving out his own space in the tribal landscape, and building his reputation as a fierce, capable hunter. Yet, deep within, he carried a complicated mix of resentment and longing. Resentment over losing the blessing, longing for reconciliation with his brother. Ishaq, perceptive even in his old age, sensed Esau's internal turmoil. He understood that healing takes time, and sometimes people must live through seasons of bitterness before reaching clarity. Meanwhile, Rebekah's heart held on to hope. She believed that her sons, despite their differences, would one day find their way back to one another. Their home remained a symbol of patience, resilience, and unwavering faith. Visitors often commented on the calmness that radiated through their household, unaware of the emotional storms that had passed through it. As Ishaq aged further, he developed a deeper appreciation for the unpredictability of life. He reflected on his childhood, his miraculous birth, and the journeys he had undertaken with his father. He remembered the lessons passed down through stories, the nights spent walking under starlit skies, and the moments when divine intervention had shifted the course of his family's history. These reflections softened him even more, making him a source of comfort for anyone who approached him. Younger men from surrounding tribes often visited to seek advice on matters of leadership, marriage, and conflict resolution. Women sought Rebekah's counsel on motherhood, relationships, and patience. Together, the couple became pillars of wisdom, their home a sanctuary of emotional refuge amid political unrest affecting regions now recognized as Israel and Jordan. Though their bodies weakened, their spirits remained strong, anchored by experience and unwavering trust in the divine plan. The final years of Ishaq's life were marked by a quiet peace. His relationship with Esau healed gradually, not through dramatic confrontations but through silent understanding. Esau realized that his father's blessing, though important, wasn't the only measure of his worth. He carved out a successful life, earning respect through skill and courage. Yaqub, after years of growth, eventually returned, older, wiser, and ready to face the unresolved emotions of his past. The reunion between the brothers wasn't perfect, but it was honest. Their embrace held decades of hurt, forgiveness, and acceptance. Ishaq witnessed this moment with tears in his eyes. For him, the restoration of his sons was one of the greatest gifts he could receive. Rebekah, too, felt a wave of relief pass through her. Her heart, once torn between two sons, finally felt whole again. Despite the trials that shaped his family, Ishaq maintained a calm, gentle demeanor until the end. His leadership wasn't marked by battles, political strategies, or large empires. Instead, it was defined by emotional strength, his ability to listen, to empathize, and to guide without force. He believed that true greatness lies not in authority but in integrity, patience, and compassion. These qualities made him beloved across tribes and regions. When he spoke, even briefly, people felt understood. His presence calmed disputes, comforted grieving hearts, and inspired others to seek peace rather than conflict. He embodied the idea that strength can be quiet, that leadership doesn't always roar. It sometimes whispers with unwavering certainty. And though centuries have passed since his lifetime, the echoes of his character remain, reminding people that spiritual influence isn't measured by monuments but by hearts touched. As the end of his life approached, Ishaq spent more time reflecting. He remembered the early days with his parents, Sarah's laughter when the prophecy of his birth was announced, Ibrahim's unwavering faith, the travels through lands that now stretch across Turkey and Syria. He remembered Rebekah's arrival and how her presence transformed his life. He remembered the joy of holding his twin sons for the first time, the conflicts that tested them, and the reconciliation that healed them. Each memory was like a star in the night sky, shining, distant, and beautiful. He felt grateful not just for the blessings, but for the hardships. They had shaped him, softened him, and taught him to see God's wisdom in every twist of fate. Even in moments of uncertainty, he realized divine guidance was always present. Sometimes clear, sometimes subtle, but always there. When Ishaq finally passed away, it was not with fear but with serenity. Those who loved him stood around, their hearts heavy yet comforted by the life he had lived. He left behind not riches, political power, or sprawling monuments, but something far more enduring, legacy. A legacy carried through his descendants, through the values he lived by, and through the stories passed down across generations. Esau and Yaqub, now older and more mature, stood together at his burial, a symbol of restored unity. Rebekah, though heartbroken, took pride in knowing she had walked beside a man of extraordinary character. His life became a reminder that greatness doesn't always come with spectacle. Sometimes, it comes quietly, through kindness, resilience, and unwavering faith. Today, when people revisit the story of Prophet Ishaq alayhi salam, they find more than historical detail, they find emotional resonance. His story speaks to parents who waited long for children, to siblings who struggled with rivalry, to couples who endured years of patience, and to anyone who faced challenges that shaped their destiny. His legacy lives not just in ancient scripture but in the hearts of people who find comfort in his gentle strength. His journey, though set in a world far removed from modern times, continues to inspire those in countries like Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and beyond. The story of Ishaq remains timeless, a narrative woven with love, trials, hope, and the unwavering truth that even the quietest lives can leave the loudest echoes. His life proves that destiny is not always dramatic, but it is always purposeful.